right, welcome everybody. It's a pleasure to have everybody here with us tonight. We are starting with the Wordle, just to get some ideas of what are some of the digital tools that you're currently using in your classroom. I'll throw that one more time up into the chat, and then we'll get a pretty good idea of what's going on. As I watch this grow, every time I refresh, I'm getting new big words. Khan Academy is getting Adobe Express. I don't remember seeing that one that is big. Again, the small ones are a little harder for me to read, but we got Class Dojo there. It looks like Prodigy, Smarty Ants. Oh, another one of my favorites. Good. Common Sense. I love it. The Common Sense. We're going to talk a little bit about that one tonight as well. Canva, Freckle, iReady. Some good stuff coming up there. Thank you so much for sharing your insights to the types of apps and tools you'll be using, because tonight's topic is digital tools to assess student learning. So we are in the Portrait of Nevada Learner, or PNL, as I like to call it, pedagogy series, and I believe we are a number 10, because I know the next two are coming are the 5E model and the 4Cs, which are two of my favorites. So hopefully you stick with us and you see those come through as well. My name is Kim Loomis. I'm the former director for online and blended learning in Clark County School District. Retired in 2019, just prior to COVID, which was a plus and a minus, because the plus is everybody got Chromebooks, which is great because now we have the equipment to actually implement some blended learning. And so that's kind of awesome. I did 10 years in the high school mathematics classroom. I was an administrator at a middle school and a virtual school before I went into some teacher training, as well as high school reform, curriculum coordinator. And I did write a book. It's called Think Outside the Box, the CIA of Blended, and 10 plus models for secondary schools. We'll talk a little bit about that tonight as we get going. So again, if you've been with us, the answer garden is up there. If you want to go check it out, hit refresh and you can see some of the tools that you guys have been using. It's so nice to see these things pop up. So it's funny, we are using a tool in our pre-question today. So this is kind of fun. Today's agenda, we got our welcome, which is our tool, our Wordle that we started off with. We're going to talk a little bit about the Portrait of Nevada Learner. We're going to go in briefly about the CIA, or Balanced Blended Learning Model, but spend a lot of our time looking at how to assess learning and using tools and strategies to doing so. As I said, this is our 10th class, but I have a question for you. You can go over to chat. How many PNL webinars have you attended? Is this your first one? That would be 0. Is this the second or third one? 4, 5, 6, 7, 7 plus, all 10. Sandy, I love it. I love it. Look at that. This is my 10th one. Yeah, we have a great following. And I got to tell you, I love this following that we have, because even if you're only attending the webinars, the following that we have in our breakout rooms, you have some great ideas. If you're doing the assignments, and we're going to talk about the assignment a little later today, and you're implementing this into your classroom, and I would highly recommend you all do it this time, because I can't imagine, you just proven it to me in the answer garden that you're already using digital tools. How about we write about it and reflect on it and get those 5 additional credit hours? So let's go ahead and start with the Portrait of Nevada Learner. So if you've been with me a while, you know that the Portrait of Nevada Learner started well before October of 2022. That's when there was about 150 to almost 200 of us in a room downtown here in Las Vegas, where we really kind of hammered out some of the ideas that we wanted. But prior to that, we had Knowledge Works that was contracted with the State Department of Education, who was working through this. And as we gathered information, as we had webinars and we had events held at libraries throughout the state, collecting information from stakeholders, students, parents, the community, we finalized the document in May of 2023. Now, I was with your superintendent just, oh gosh, I know this because it was March 8th, and we talked about the power of this document and how it helps us reframe what classrooms can look like in the state of Nevada. So it's not changing the academics. What it's really doing is blending the academics with the durable skills that we all know are important in life. We don't have to wait till we're in the business world or in the world of work to learn all of these skills like resilience, creative thinking, time management, flexibility, even leadership skills. Those are things that we need time to practice with. And so as we change our pedagogy in our classroom, still doing math, science, social studies, electives, world languages, what we want to do is think about the pedagogy that we're using so that we're bringing in opportunities for students to practice and fine tune these skills. And that's what the PNL, or the Portrait of a Nevada Learner, is truly about. So tonight, let's talk about the 4 areas that you see in there. So the Portrait of a Nevada Learner, and I'm going to go ahead and drop the PDF document there into chat, has 4 areas: empower, connect, impact, and thrive. And this is designed from the student's point of view. How do we empower? How can I connect? How can I make an impact? And what does thriving look like? Not just in my 4 walls of my classroom, but just in life in general. So if you pull up that document, what you'll see is those 4 areas. And they really go and they break them down a little bit. Like empowering is asking kids to reflect, asking kids to think about thinking, curiosity, having self-awareness, and thinking about how to balance those academics with those durable skills. Connecting, that's really going to be our 4Cs class, which is coming up here shortly, is collaborating, communicating, and having respect and empathy for one another. Impacting, which I want us to go a little bit deeper on tonight, is making sure that we have purpose for the impact that we're doing and having them be critical thinkers and creative problem solvers and be civically engaged and knowing that they are part of a community. And when they don't engage, it hurts the community. Matter of fact, it's so funny. I just saw somewhere the other day, somebody said that they were doing cahoots. And maybe this was in the last class, the PBL class, where they said the kids weren't taking it seriously. So I told them if we didn't get 70%, we were going to stop this, because the kids that were goofing off was hurting the community. They didn't understand the civic responsibility they had to their classroom. And we'll talk more about impacting here in a moment. And the last one there is thriving. Ha, Kelly, see, that was you. Thriving is resilience and courageous and being intellectually agility so that we can unlearn and relearn opportunities and having integrity instead of, like using AI to cheat or asking my big brother to do it. Or when we were at the virtual high school, we would catch kids that would pay somebody to write their chemistry paper. It's crazy. So we got to help kids with those types of things. All right. So tonight we want to spend more time about impacting. And when you think about your classroom, and we're going to go into a breakout here room in just a moment, I want you to think about what do you do in your classroom that helps kids understand that when they contribute, they make an impact. Right? And it's not just transferring their knowledge and skills across the disciplines, but making sure that there's purpose for that. If I learn how to do charting and graphing in my math class, it shouldn't stay in my math class. It should be stuff I'm doing in all of my classes, or maybe even in the real world. If I'm taking notes at the secondary level in my social studies class, why wouldn't I take notes when I go home and I'm learning about financial literacy and my dad's talking to me about investing in an IRA? Analyzing data, ideas, and iterations as critical thinkers and problem solvers. This is going to be important today as we look at some of the digital tools that we'll be using, because we're going to get data most often from these digital tools. And if you're in the data class, oh my gosh, I can't remember who it was. They had the calculus class where the kids were doing their own data. And I know she put it into the class. If you haven't seen it yet, when the kids started analyzing the data, they realized that they really weren't prepared, and they knew what areas they weren't prepared for in the AP calculus class. So that's, again, analyzing data. Eleanor, see, that was you. See, I love it. And then we have active members in the community. And this is, I love this. This is one that Kelly said that was her, right? Saying that, if we have to help them understand that they are part of a community, and public discourse and decision making and how to promote that civic engagement. So as we move forward and as you think about your classroom, how are you helping them understand that their little body, even in a class of 20 or a class of 40 or in a society, how are they making an impact? So we're going to go to our first breakout rooms. And when we do that, I want you to think about impacting. And when you think about impacting, what classroom strategies are you using to help kids with impacting? Welcome back, guys. Hopefully you had some great conversations about impacting and strategies you use in your classroom. If you had something that you want to share for the whole group, throw it up into chat. I want to hear it. I want to see it. So please go ahead and throw that right up into chat. So tonight, what we're going to be talking about is using digital tools, and I love it, for tracking progress. Thank you. And I'm going to start us off with CIA, because one of the things we want to talk about in CIA is how we balance our classroom. And you've heard me talk about, those of you, and I noticed I did a survey at the beginning there, used a digital tool, that just happens to be the chat in Zoom here, about how many classes we've been to. So I know a couple of you have already heard this before, but let's go ahead and review it. The blended personalized learning being a former math teacher, I like to make it quick and easy, the math little equation. It says taking the wisdom of the teachers plus the adaptability of technology so that we can create a personalized learning space for each and every student. And that's what we do with tools and apps oftentimes. They are logging in, and so we're getting individualized data back from each of those students. If they're logging in to iReady, and I noticed it was in our Wordle today, Adobe, I see those people have put some of those up. You know, when you think about it, they are getting a personalized learning space. Even if we throw them in Prodigy Math, that's their learning space. And this is where we can use your wisdom plus the adaptability of technology to personalize the place for each student. Now, these three icons, of course, are where we get the 1/3. 1/3 of the time, we want to use digital curriculum, math, science, social studies, English lessons to deliver DOK level 1 and 2. And the 1/3 of the time we want to release to our students, and sometimes that includes tools. Like tonight, we're going to do interactive slides. I might give my students interactive slides so that they're working together in groups 1/3 of the time. And 1/3 of the time, we are guiding the instruction. Sometimes that guiding instruction is plain right here. It's direct instruction. Sometimes it's Socratic seminars. Sometimes it's station rotation. We've talked about playlist and choice boards in the past. There's lots of different ways to guide that instruction. But if you look at these 1/3, 1/3, 1/3, the hardest part for us to remember is we're going to step off the stage 2/3 of the time. When we release to digital content and when we release to our students, we get to do the fun part of teaching by walking around. And I love that part because that's where we start building relationships. This is what I like to call the CIA of blended. Digital curriculum, 1/3 of the time, guided instruction, 1/3 of the time, and authentic assessment. When kids are either assessing themselves, assessing projects, doing projects, and then they can use a rubric to assess themselves, or even a digital tool. And we're going to talk more about that tonight. Now, I have a handout for you that kind of wraps this up. You'll also find it in the course, so don't feel like you have to pull it out right now. That really kind of goes over the 1/3, 1/3, 1/3. And as we move through this tonight, I want to make sure that we're well aware of how we're balancing that classroom. When I talk about DOK level 1 and 2 and releasing digital content, and we could do it with Prodigy Math as well, which is a tool that can give a little bit of instruction. It gives them some practice, some fact recall, some basic concepts. We can release that to the digital tools and content, right? DOK level 1 and 2. But to get to DOK level 3 and 4, which is the top of Bloom's taxonomy, we need to create PBLs. I think that was our last class, right? We need to have them synthesize, analyze, apply real world discussions to get them to the top of that Bloom's taxonomy so we can get them to the higher order DOK. So as we're thinking through this, you got DOK level 1 and 2 using digital content. We're going to get data from that, so it's going to help us guide our instruction so we can push our kids to higher order so that we can extend the learning to even DOK level 4, which is the top of the pyramid of Bloom's taxonomy, so that they can show us that they've mastered all of the content in our standards, or at least the power standards, which are so important. So tonight, we're going to be talking about digital tools. So there's a difference between digital content and digital tools. And I want you to really look at this slide we have here, because digital content, you'll hear me say all the time, the digital content comes full. It's full of curriculum. It's full of math, science, social studies, English. It's full. It's like sometimes it's a single lesson. Sometimes it might be just a learning object. Sometimes it's a full course. So iReady, Khan Academy, these have subject areas that are already ready to deliver DOK level 1 and 2. And I always say digital tools come empty. When you open a Word doc or you open a brand new Kahoot, it's empty. It allows us to create, organize, and manage things in our classroom, right? It's specifically designed so that we can enhance instruction or enhance assessment. So when I talk about digital content, full of math, science, social studies, English, digital tools, they typically come empty. Now, I say typically because sometimes in a tool garden, You could go into Cahoots and somebody's already made one and they've put it in the repository, but they had to start with something that was empty. So even when we have a teacher repository and we have things that teachers have shared, it still may be sitting in a digital tool, but it's just shared. Now, keeping in mind our cognitive load and our students' cognitive load, I like to say have no more than 1 to 3 digital partners in content area. Like if I like Discovery Ed, and I know the State Department of Education is giving you guys Discovery Ed, so for an elementary teacher, I love it because it's got math, science, social studies, English, it's got literacy, it's got all different subject areas. So it's one login place and one thing for me, cognitive load, and one place for my parents and my students' cognitive load to go to get digital content. Now, digital tools, sometimes we want to extend that. We probably want 3 to 5 of them. And when I say that, it's because we want something that's going to help us assess. We want something that's going to help us with presentation. We want something that's going to help us with videos. We want something that's going to help us with, brainstorming. So you see that it has different need for tools. But really, guys, really try to keep your digital tools. Don't get app happy. Don't think it's 5 o'clock app happy. And tonight, that's not what we're doing. Tonight, I'm going to show you a lot of digital tools, but I don't want you thinking you need all of them. Find 3 to 5 of them that you really want to dig in deeper. So what I did is I just took a screenshot of some of my digital content and some of my digital tools. So like ReadWorks, FET Labs, IXL, Khan Academy, somebody mentioned Common Sense in our garden just a moment ago. Those are digital content. They come with things in it. Now, digital tools like Quizlet, Paradeck, Socrative, Formative, Classcraft, Kahoot, Flipgrid, Edpuzzle, they typically come empty. When I say new, it is new. Right? So those are digital tools. So as we're moving forward today, I want you to start thinking about some digital tools. And as you're planning, I want you to think about, well, I can get data from digital content, but I can also get data from that 1/3 with my students when I release to my students, when I can have them do something in a digital tool or create in a digital tool. Or I might put a digital tool like that 1/3 in the middle there. I might put a digital tool in a small group, or I might use it for intervention, or I might add it to my playlist or my choice board, or maybe even my projects because I want kids to do audios or I want them to do videos. So these digital tools can really come across in lots of different places as you're going through and you're doing your planning. All right. In chat, when we think of the 1/3, 1/3, 1/3, I want you to think about what struggles are you having right now in adopting this blended learning in your classroom. So over in chat, what struggles are you having in adopting blended learning in your classroom? Is it student behavior? Is it not finding the right partners? Is it you're trying it and it's not working? What struggles are you having? Or if you're not having any struggles, say, I'm doing good. My kids are enjoying it. I'm enjoying it. That's the nice thing about, in the reflective narratives, I get to read about how much your kids are enjoying these things. Attendance, yes. Age appropriateness in preschool, yes. Those are good. Planning, time, love it. These are all great struggles, and throwing those up there. Yeah, not so much talking time, behavior, you got it. And part of the behavior is just having them practice some of the skills that we want them to have and understanding. And if you go back to our, I think it's P&L 6, and they're all on the DOE website, you can go back and look at that about student ownership and helping them with having them own it. Curriculum, ain't that the truth? When you have a scripted curriculum you have to use. All right. So let's talk about assessing students with digital tools and what can that look like. So have you guys ever done this? You guys have been on Zoom. Come on, you went through COVID. You know how to go up to COVID, and you know how to go up to your menu and go to the view options and annotate. I want you to annotate on my screen here. So what you're going to do is I've got a bunch of digital tools. If you use G Suite, go ahead and put a stamp over on G Suite. If you're using Microsoft, put a stamp on Microsoft. Right? If you're using Paradeck or Nearpod, this is another tool that gets a way for me to assess what you guys are using. So Padlet, Flipgrid, those are great ones for discussions. Kahoots and Quizlet for assessment. Thank you, Eleanor. You got Edpuzzle and PlayPosit. Those are great for video. So when we're thinking about video, thank you, Michelle. And you notice how they just went up to, on their screen, they just went up to at the very top, and it's like the view option. Sometimes it's found underneath more and annotate. And I bet you some of you even probably had your kids do some annotate when you were in COVID times. So again, this is just another way for me to assess the learning using a digital tool. I've got a nice slide here that I could just have you guys write on or use the annotation tool, stamp something on there. It gives me a pretty good idea that more Nearpod than Pear Deck, more G Suite than Office Suite. So good. We've got some Padlets, not too many down here in the videos. It's interesting. So that might be some place that you might want to try. And maybe if you are trying it, you might want to do it. Oh, Zoom. Yeah, using Zoom. Yeah, I love it. That's not up here because these are just the 5 categories, but thank you, Eleanor. All right, great. Thank you guys so much. Doesn't matter. We're going to go somewhere in just a moment. I got to figure out how to clear the screen. Okay, so when we talk about assessment types, what I want us to do is I want us to start thinking about, when are you assessing? Are you assessing before the learning, during the learning, or after the learning? So again, assessing before the learning. So oftentimes that could be like we did tonight with the answer garden. During the learning, which we can do like we did just a moment ago with the annotation on the screen. And the other one would be after the learning with like a warm out. All right, so when we're lesson planning, what we want to do is we want to think about aligning the assessment strategy with the digital tool. So you saw the 5 categories I had in the tool there a moment ago. I like to have a tool for assessing. I like to have a tool for video. I like to have a tool for animation. So I try to find about 5 categories that I like. Now, for me, what I think is important, yeah, each person can clear their own. Thank you, Eleanor. For me, what I find to be really important is that is having the different tools and not overburdening myself. So if I can use Google like 6 or 8 different ways, then I probably don't have to bring in another tool. So thinking through what strategies and what tools. And again, I want us to keep our cognitive load down, right? I don't want to bring the cognitive load up for my kids, nor do I want to be a cognitive load for my students. So as we're thinking through this, and we're going to watch a quick video here, 7 strategies for formative assessment. So in this video, guys, I want you to pay close attention because we're going to go to breakout rooms in just a moment, and we're going to do what's called interactive slides, and it's going to use all 7 of these strategies. So I want you to start thinking about what kind of tools would you use for that strategy. So that's what we're going to be doing in just a moment. And if we can't hear it, please.
7 strategies for using formative assessments in online learning.
Great, thank you.
It is a common worry for instructors to know if their students are learning online. Let's take a look at some strategies for using formative assessments to gauge student understanding online. Strategy 1. Do a background knowledge probe. A knowledge probe activates the background knowledge a student may already have about the topic. You can do this before the start of a lesson by sharing a quiz of 2 to 3 open-ended or multiple choice questions. Strategy 2. Do a misconception check. Like a background knowledge probe, you can assess for and address the misconceptions students typically have about a concept. For example, you can present students with common and predictable misconceptions about a topic and ask them whether they agree or disagree and have them explain why. Strategy 3. Use the discussion forums. Online courses allow for more detailed assessment of discussion. You can track learning progress by having your students engage in a weekly discussion with each other via the discussion forums. Strategy 4. Use the muddiest point paper. This assessment is a good strategy to see where students are facing difficulties. For example, if you assign students a reading for the week, you can have them turn in a brief reflection on the confusing concepts in the reading that was unclear to them. Strategy 5. Give practice quizzes. These quizzes encourage reflection and fosters deliberate practice. It is non-graded and can be given to students to assess their knowledge of the material. Strategy 6. Embed quizzes in videos. Question prompts help students with comprehension and retention of material. You can use tools like Edpuzzle, an interactive video assessment tool, to create question prompts and quizzes within the video. Strategy 7. Use polls. Student polling and voting is one way of eliciting feedback and engaging your students online. You can use polls at the beginning of your course to check student preferences for your office hours, or you could do a quick poll at the end of each course topic to go over student understanding before moving on to the next topic. There are free, limited-use polling tools to use, like Poll Everywhere and Easy Polls.
All right, guys. So what we're going to do is we're going to go into breakout rooms here in just a moment. And what I want you to do in the breakout rooms is I want you to think about what tools could you be using. So I'm going to throw up some slides inside of chat, and you're going to go into your breakout rooms according to your groups, and then you're going to start thinking about the tools that you would use to do this. Now, I know that they talked about discussions, but I want us to think about in our classroom instead of discussions. I want you to think about, how do you have your kids brainstorm? So again, you'll want to pull up the slides, and I went ahead and I threw those up into the chat there. That's right. These slides are all editable to write the suggested tools as you're working on. So again, I'm going to open up all the breakout rooms. Welcome back. Welcome back. Those of you that are coming back, you know what the cool thing about interactive slides is that you could see other people's work. That's what I absolutely love about this. So remember when we talk about that 1/3 to being student assessment and stuff like that, I can look over here, and I was seeing some of the rooms, and I actually popped into a couple of rooms that I didn't see movement on. So I can actually monitor it. That's that 1/3 releasing to peers and finding out, do you need help? Is there something I can do to help you? And the cool thing is with interactive slides, when you set it up like this and you talk about, and I know you guys are adults, but you talk about you own slide 3, please do not, write on other people's slides and those types of things, but really making sure that, you've set the parameters as you go through here. The cool thing is I'm seeing all kinds of really good ideas for Muddiest Point, for knowledge checks, for embedded questions into videos, polls, and surveys. You guys actually rocked it. All right, so we're going to wrap this up tonight. I know we got 10 minutes, so I'm going to talk really, really, really super fast. But you know what? You guys talked a lot about digital tools a moment ago. So let's talk about tools and strategy. First off, when you're thinking about tools and strategies, I want you to think about what are you going to use it for? Are you going to use it for skill and practice? Are you going to use it for adaptiveness so that it can put, kids into groups? Are you looking at full courses, which this class is not about? Or are you looking for some assessment, some data collection? So I gave you guys a inside your Canvas course, and I'll throw this up into the chat as well, is I'm going to give you guys a full slide deck that has a gazillion, and I don't want you guys going to a gazillion. Remember, I said 3 to 5 tools that you're going to want to look at, but there are some games and practices and fun stuff that you can do when you're bringing in digital tools. And some of you guys are already doing this because I saw 99-cent math on the answer garden earlier a moment ago, right? And so I know that you're already doing it. So when you're thinking through what do you want to do, what does your classroom implementation look like, here's a bunch of other digital tools that when I think about categories, I want to have a good category or tool that I'm always using for presentation, one that I might be using for video, maybe 2 for assessment, because sometimes it gets boring. So Blooket could be fun, but also I could be using Seesaw or even Flippity. We'll talk a little bit more about that. And then I don't know, I'm having a hard time getting over that they've gotten rid of Padlet. So FigJam is a new replacement for those types of things. And just thinking about what type of tools that you want to do. So when you're thinking, and you could go back into the slide deck, the interactive slide deck, and see what other people are doing it. When you're doing quizzes, yes, we could use Google Forms, or I notice most of you aren't using Microsoft, but they have a different way of doing it as well. Or you all have access to Canvas, so you can create quizzes inside of Canvas. What I love about Canvas is you have the ability to give students feedback. So if they have a wrong answer, you can give them feedback. So you could be coaching them through that. And that's a great way. Now, another one we just talked about was Flippity. And I love Flippity. And that's using Google again. And I know most of you said you were Google, and doing different things that you can create, gamifying your assessment. GymKit's one way to do it, Paradeck flashcards, JRP Labs, having peer evaluations, thinking about how to gamify using digital tools in your classroom and get your kids excited about learning concepts that they're probably not normally excited about. Who wants to learn vocabulary? But if I did it as a flashcard factory, or if I did it as quiz trade, maybe I can get the kids to do it. Or how about I have the kids create the flashcards, or have the kids create the Kahoots and they can play each other. So thinking about how you can do that. Now, we just had a full class on project-based learning. So again, using tools, not us, but allowing the kids to use tools to be creative, to critical think, to collaborate, to communicate. So making infographics, again, using tools, a blog, a presentation, a video. They're using tools. And this is another way you can bring that digital tools into your classroom. And as I talked about in the last class, I'm a big fan of single point rubrics. This way students can self-assess or they can peer assess before they turn it into you. And you're going to see this again in the Canvas course. I'm a big fan of, if you're going to do projects, have the kids self-assess. Remember, we talk about impacting, and what impact better than actually having them self-assess or assess a peer. And you want to talk about leadership skills when you're assessing a peer, what does that take in leadership skills wise? I'm giving you reflection. I'm giving you feedback. Before you turn this into the teacher, you might run it through a grammar check. So we're not going to do the Jamboard, but that was one of my favorite jams. Now they have it as Flippity, and we're running close to time, so I'm not going to push it. But I had us doing a Jamboard a moment ago, thinking about how do digital tools help me, right? Think about this class. How did I use digital tools? Well, I started off with, the garden, word thing, and then we moved into using the Zoom. And thank you, those of you guys, for cleaning the annotations. And then we moved into interactive slides. I would have had Jamboard here. And how did that help you take ownership of your learning as you're going through? Thinking through just this session alone, how many different tools did we use? How did that affect you as a learner and me as a teacher as I'm growing through this? So your next steps, and I know, guys, I've already seen it. You've already told me. I'm seeing it on the slide deck, on the interactive slide deck here. I saw it on the answer garden. I saw it when you annotated your slides earlier. You're already using digital tools. So think about how can you create or remix an assessment or some activity that you can do in your classroom and implement this so that you can get those 5 additional hours of credit inside the Canvas course. Now, again, you don't have to do the Canvas course. It's just a way to get an additional 5 hours of credit. I don't know if you need 5 hours of credit. If the webinar is enough, that's good. But think about the big ideas and the culminating assessment, and then figure out what planning events that you want to have through that.